Okay, I'll call the meeting to order then. And we have a couple of absences. Sumner can't make it today. He's out west and not in a place where he can join by Zoom. Daphne won't be joining us till October. Donna is on Zoom. And everyone else is here, and we have a couple of guests from Sussex County, and Matt and Jeff from Mark and the Lewes wastewater treatment plant. So Sumner is not here to give an update on whether it might be possible if we stay with or go with back to look at option one, keeping the plant. Existing plant and hardening it. He's not here to give us an update on whether he's contacted anyone who thinks it might be possible to discharge to the wetlands adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant. But he did say, after listening to Donna, who talked about constructed wetlands versus discharging to existing wetlands, he's kind of not so keen on the idea that he raised before, but I'm still curious about it because, I'm not an engineer, so I don't know the mechanics of it all, but I have a place, well, my family has a place in Prime Hook, and you've got that huge marsh there. And after, I think it was Hurricane Sandy or something, the freshwater wetlands turned to saltwater wetlands, and we watched all the trees die, and the whole ecology of the wetlands change. And after a while, now we have some nice functioning saltwater wetlands, and I'm thinking, we keep discharging good water into marine environments, and we need to recharge our aquifers. And maybe we don't know, the issue was raised, we don't know whether that part of that marsh is fresh water now. It might be, we don't know how saline it is. But wouldn't it be nice if we could discharge fresh water to the marsh and turn it into a freshwater wetland and recharge the aquifer that way and try and keep some of the saltwater intrusion. Now, that's probably not feasible, but it's my latest crazy idea.
Yes. I love the crazy. May I ask a question about this?
Yes.
Because again, I know nothing about this, so I'm exposing myself and my stupidity here, my ignorance. Would that work where you would actually discharge the fresh water onto the surface? Or are you talking about piping it into, putting it into the ground with the idea of recharging the aquifer? Or have you not talked through that much?
Haven't gotten that far. Yeah.
If you inject it, then there's DNRC regulations which very strictly speak to that. So as soon as it becomes a subsurface discharge, it becomes an injection.
Okay.
So if you use it under a surface discharge, it would be not allowed under the regulations today. That doesn't exist. So that's why we are building a wetland in the bays under a experimental operations plan. So what we're building out there is something which doesn't exist in the regulation, which we intended to do it in the bay at Wilfink before the state found all the other stuff.
So what you're doing at the inland bay would be a test for Genrec to see if it can
establish regulations. We have a 5-year operations plan which collects a lot of data.
I see.
Which would then allow the department, if they feel like it is a good option, we would then develop regulations around it.
Right.
But is that a constructed wetland or an existing?
What you're proposing is an NPDES discharge, which is prohibited under the inland bays TMDL.
But we're not part of the end.
You're connected.
We're connected because of the canal.
Uh,
The water
well,
flows
that's
two
what-
ways.
Yeah. Well, then that takes us to the conversation about building the dam in the canal, right? So that we
Yeah,
can be
right,
separated
right.
from, isn't that what
Any further comment?
you?
What kind of permit would that be?
Damn permit.
A damn bunch of them.
I like that
After you
idea.
get done the constructed wetlands, it's possible they would turn it down after 5 years of looking at the data, I would assume.
No, there was one underlying premise. If you have vegetation in your constructed wetland, whatever water nitrogen concentration you put in is going to be less by the time it infiltrates.
So there is, if you put it in, it would have stayed in.
No,
No.
what I'm saying is the plants will take up nitrogen, so you will be better off. Plus, we're doing a mixing with, we're proposing a 50-50 mix with groundwater. The groundwater we're using to mix has a higher nitrogen concentration than the airport. So it's really a non-point pollution control project because we're intercepting the natural groundwater flow with high nitrates. Nitrates we're intercepting is in the 13 range. We're discharging the 7. So we're essentially mixing ours and that together, then using the plants to uptake. So let's just say the balance, what we're putting in is 10. By the time we have a bunch of monitoring wells along this wetland, by the time it comes to the last series of monitor wells, it is going to be less than 10. I can't tell you how much less than 10, but it will be less than 10.
And this is something that if approved, and I realize there's different
No,
issues now.
you cannot, today, we cannot get a number for, we get 0 credit for this in our discharge permit. Because it doesn't exist in the regulations.
Right, you're trying to prove it in for future years.
We're doing a
That's-
gigantic research project for improvements to future rain.
And is Denrick helping to offset those costs associated for this test? Let
But
the
it's
record
possible
show I
after-
saw a goose egg.
Is it possible that
You get
if
that
you do the
clear.
test, that it gets denied because it doesn't have the effect that they thought or you thought it would?
It would only be denied if the nitrogen goes up.
Okay, so it could, it is a test then, it's legally.
It's chemically not possible.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of time to pass before it
How
gets
many years
approved.
into it are you?
5.
We are about to fire it up, so
Oh,
it took years to get to the operations plan. It took the last 9 months to build it. We will fire it up this fall.
And again, this is
And it's
not,
a 5-year testing period, Barbara, so we're 5.5 years away from knowing how much it reduces.
mm,
and again, this is not an injection form, correct?
No, because otherwise the regulations for the injection exist.
Ah,
Yes, but it's never been built in Delaware because they're so prohibitive. You have to inject, you cannot inject what Barbara's proposing.
no,
You would have to inject it in a brackish aquifer, which is separated by an aquitard from any potable aquifer. That means it's an 800-foot well.
You're not gonna do it.
But that's what the regulations say today, and unless you change the regulation by law,
and that regulation is a state law, that's not, okay, federal, okay.
Is there gonna be any management of the plants to remove them and to take the nitrogen out of the system, or is it just gonna rely on denitrification?
no, the nitrogen will change over time to become more, of the organic nitrogen.
Right.
But we're really looking at, because that does not get dissolved, we're looking at what does happen to the nitrate.
I mean,
you would-
on a mass balance situation, the nitrogen's gotta go somewhere, so it's either gonna go off as gas,
Most
found
likely,
in plants, or go in the drainage.
some will be bound in line, and some will be going off the gas because we're discharging pretty much at saturation to go. You can imagine by the time it reaches the end.
Right, right. Yeah, the carbon source over there.
But from a chemistry it works. But I cannot. I have a feel for what it will reduce it, but your guess might be better than mine.
I think You're right on target.
Well,
Mark, would you agree it won't be more?
I agree with that. Whether it reaches a max and doesn't reduce is the question.
But we will take oil sped any day, you know.
I'm optimistic. Pleasantly optimistic.
I try to be optimistic.
Well, I like that thinking. Yeah, all right. So may I ask a question with respect to number 3, update on discharging to wetlands, Sumner Crosby? The fact that he's not here, does that mean this will be deferred until the next time he is able to attend? Or,
We will probably have a discussion when he gets back from his travels, and he will decide whether he wants to pursue it or whether it gets dropped.
possibly.
It has a regular prohibition like that.
Yeah. But,
T-
you know,
TMDL
people have to change.
TMDLs are regulatory, which means unless the TMDL is amended by a regulatory process, a discharge permit cannot issue.
The MDL.
What does that mean? TMDL?
Total maximum daily load.
Okay, thank you.
So, but if you don't exceed the TMDLs,
TMDL for the inland bays
says,
all discharges have to be eliminated. That means no new permits can be had.
so the fact that we discharge to the canal,
That puts us in,
You are the only surviving discharge permit into the canal because the majority of the flow goes through the shallow.
right, right. So if we just had a very leaky pipe
And
out to the canal, perforated pipe.
And you would be testing your IP.
Yes.
Kind of pushing the envelope.
Okay.
Sometimes you have to be bold, right? All right,
Okay, so. Austin walked out. I wondered, you know, we talked about his discussions with the Narita plant in Alabama, but Austin wasn't here during that meeting, so I was hoping he could throw a little more light on things.
I don't think his phone call should last that long. He should
Okay,
be back shortly.
okay. So, and as we see, Hans is here, so the request was made that we let the people on the board and also Sussex County know that we would be inviting Narita to, or Aqua Narita to give us a presentation, and that we would let both the board members and Sussex County Engineering know that when that date was selected, so that they could choose to be here.
They do have a presentation scheduled, did you know that?
Yeah.
They send out an invitation for a 1.5 hour presentation on the technology.
to be held where,
It's a virtual thing, so you could sign up for it. So I signed up for it because I thought Barbara set it up.
Oh.
well,
When is it?
share the details.
Yeah.
Come on, don't hold back the hump.
I have to look again.
Which that won't be geared to our questions, but
It was geared towards that technology, that's why I
yeah,
thought.
yeah,
Otherwise, the coincidence was just too.
yeah, right.
So it is this Thursday,
Oh, wow.
Aqua Narita installation performance webinar.
On the 14th then,
Yes,
at what time, please?
11:30.
Hans, will you send it to me and I'll send it out to everybody?
I will send it.
Are you gonna be attending that, or are you?
I signed up for it, so unless something else gets in my way.
Right,
You have other things to do.
Virtual.
And so in effect, is this a sales pitch that they're doing, or is this actually?
I actually get
technical
some
side?
continued education credits by attending.
There you go.
Oh, is that
It
right?
was really helpful, but Barbara just searches up for me.
It'll be a bit of a sales pitch but it'll be a lot of good stuff. too,
Okay.
Especially with the question and answers.
Yes.
Possibilities.
Oh, excellent.
At least that's what I'm familiar with.
I can't do it on my phone.
That's
I
okay.
don't know how to do it on my phone. I'll write myself a note for tomorrow.
If not, I'll call you.
And where is that?
It is in the virtual world.
11:30.
11:30.
So it's a virtual meeting.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Interesting.
Austin, can you tell us about the discussion you had with the people in Alabama?
So I reached out to Riviera Utilities, gentleman's name is Lee Kibler. Kind of just touched base, very high level at that point because we weren't into the weeds as much as we are today. Or at this point. Just asked some very high level questions. Some of those answers I think were included in the meeting that I was not able to attend because I was at TriCon. They basically passed on that they are happy with the plan. And they would be more than willing to kind of walk through the steps that they went to kind of come to the conclusion that they went with that technology. They also gave me, I believe it was the contact, was it for Kansas? I think that was the other plant, which was located in the floodplain, actually located in the floodplain.
Oh,
That they said they may be another good option of talking to, just because of how the plant's designed. So happy to facilitate in any way a call with either one of them or both of them at the same time. Obviously, like we said, Narita will come through as more like a sales pitch. These guys actually have the technology implemented and probably will tell you if they like it or they don't.
And how long have they had it in this Alabama?
Alabama's not long. I'm gonna say less than 12, 24 months.
Okay. And the one in the other state has been in place
It's longer.
Okay.
So the Barbara asked me a question about the sludge processing, and I also passed that on to our friends from GHQ. And they knew the same problematic. I mean, there's a number of processes which have, let's say, additives. Some people use like, iron shavings, this one. There's a number of different technologies out there, and they all add to the complexity of how you move the sludge, because you end up with, it's not just the biological sludge, it has stuff in it. Whatever it,
Maybe because of the additives?
no, I mean,
Oh.
Narita has, obviously pellets, like,
Right.
so that they eventually will have to be wasted out. And then,
The pellets are not artificial.
no, they're not,
Okay,
but you still have to move them.
yes.
And is that a
So
problem
whether a
for
regular-
you all, the
resident
county?
It would be impossible for us to do it,
so
Can
we
you
would,
explain? I'm sorry.
because, we have certain mechanical means to move sludge for progressive cavity pumps. And if you add solid material to it beyond what we can move, we couldn't get it into our dryer, and our dryer is not able to handle it to begin with. So you have to have a completely different biosolids process. So if you use that technology, your buyer agreement with the county would be void, because we couldn't handle it anymore.
And that's our bio agreement. Yeah.
And what does Alabama do with their sludges? Do you?
We didn't get into it. Because when we talked about footprint, the footprint of the plant itself is that's not where you get into your acreage. It's when you start getting solid.
Sure.
So needless to
Tail
say,
wags the dog.
the engineers didn't think about it, but chairwoman thought about it, so she asked the question. I hadn't thought about it.
Yeah,
And maybe for your clarity, Tim, it's
Yeah.
that our solids handling, we have a solids handling agreement with Sussex County. So what happens is currently we have drying beds that as we dry material and then we store material, these guys load it into one of the dumpsters, and then the dumpsters are hauled off to their facility. Sometimes it requires extra drying, which then we start a discussion of Sussex County actually taking liquid because they can dry it once and they can dry it to their means. So our agreement with Sussex County is they come and take our waste, whether it be a solid or liquid, as it stands right now. Solid in the form of diametrous earth.
And what happens then?
It would be,
Yeah, but what does Sussex County do with it?
We have a thermal dryer which takes it to 90+% solvent. And then there's a class A biosolids. We have a couple of farmers who have contracts with us which take it if it falls in the right time period of the year. If not, it goes to landfill.
So how does that kind of biosolid treated the way that you just described compare to the Narita? I understand the Narita is a pellet, correct?
We just couldn't handle it.
But I don't understand that statement at times. I don't, Is it-
Our solid arrives in the cake form. right?
okay,
So it's a like Play-Doh, I mean, very thin.
yeah,
has
So
a
it-
jello, sometimes a jello.
Jello is probably better.
Yeah.
The Jello consistency, so we dump it
Thank you.
into the progressive cavity pumps, they pump it up in the dryer, and then there's another auger which moves it through the dryer. So if you introduce grit, which essentially this is, a solid. Whether it's biodegradable or not, it is a solid. The pumps, first the pumps would plug up, and then the dryer would plug up.
So you need a different kind of.
Can't you use the
I
water?
mean,
No,
Presumably somebody that,
Defeats the
somebody has
purpose.
figured that
Well,
out.
They must be transferred and somehow,
Right.
operate
Yeah,
the
but that's what I
plants, I'm
said.
just not sure.
That's what I'm curious to see,
Yeah,
what
me too.
kind of process do they
Yeah.
use?
But you're not trying to recover that grit. You're
No,
not trying to
No,
take it out.
No,
You're just,
that grit is really a biological solid that's made into these little pellets that you.
okay, so
But it's a
some other
hard,
pump,
it's a hard material. when it's-
excavator
that's-
or shovel.
Thus, is fix the traffic enough to be able to be moved by a progressive cavity pump or a piston pump or.
we had a
It must
gravity,
be moved somehow in some of these plants. They just don't know
now
what.
the Kent process could handle this, because the Kent process was a gravity fed process. And a gravity fed dryer,
So, I see.
everything was moved by belts,
That's possible.
not a problem.
Yeah.
The process we unfortunately have, not many stuff.
So the Kent process, you mean Kent County?
Hmm.
Wow,
That's not a trademark.
okay.
well, is this is the county interested in changing its technology
That were $13 million ago.
$13 million ago? Let's see.
So we would be retiring $13 million in investment. Things are only 2.5 years old. In
But
that, in
that's
that, in that, in that
Saves us
case,
time.
capital speaks.
Yeah.
Saves us a lot on our side to have that agreement, because before, we literally contracted with a trucking company that would take it and haul it to Pennsylvania.
Which is
Just
crazy-
like the
which is
Chlora.
Crazy.
It's the same thing as the Chlora, when we haul the liquid from CEI.
So we,
Well, thank you for that
So we
description, I
have-
didn't have an appreciation.
we have unfortunately built in limitations, never expecting.
Right. It'd be interesting to hear what the Narita plants do with their sludge, how they manage it,
As I said,
whether,
if you, sorry for interrupting, but if we had a process like Kent County, it wouldn't be a problem.
yeah.
You mean the solar drying beds?
That would work there too, but I'm talking about the actual cascade dryers they have.
Okay, so another.
There's always the sludge.
The same old sludge.
And there's the other issue is that when you have a biological sludge without pellets, your weight is less. So if you,
In weight per unit volume.
Yeah,
because in the future, we've been doing some pretty extensive PFAS testing on the sludges. Future of the sludge land application, in my opinion, is that
okay, can you talk some more about that, please?
because PFAS seems to be everywhere. And so essentially, I believe 10 years from now, all sludges will end up in.
You don't see any kind of energy use application.
You could have an energy application, but I mean, I don't know enough about filter technology where the PFAS can be removed.
PFAS has to be removed
No, no.
eventually by burning.
That's what I mean, you have to have your temperature has to be high enough, which I don't know whether you get this in a normal steam generating plant.
You have to have, it has to be smack dab on to be able to dispose of PFAS. It's a huge conversation at Tricon, they were talking about it, because if you're a utility company that's servicing on the water side and you have activated charcoal or a method, reverse osmosis, to get rid of it, it's what do you do with the waste because it's considered hazardous.
Right.
And that whole situation hasn't been.
I mean, that's on the water side, I mean, it's like, it's on both ends.
Yeah,
but the
that's
fact
the
is
same
that,
thing.
you know, like, just,
But if you, by moving this into landfill, doesn't that create a engineering challenge for landfills as well? Be putting this material in the landfill?
we're producing a challenge for the landfills every day because we waste too much sludge waste.
Well,
What's a
that's
little-
true too.
What's a little sludge? The sludge is a minuscule part of what we throw out. It's a
Nice
small
cover,
part.
nice cover material for the landfill.
Yes, it actually is.
Yes.
Everyone, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
But the, and so that's why I'm somewhat pessimistic about the long-term future of land application of fire sludges. Darn chemicals.
Yeah, all the nutrients in that sludge to not be able to find a good.
Capture it.
use it.
Repurpose it.
Well, there's also the other chemicals, like medicines and things like that, that are making it through the plants and getting into the sludges.
Well, how much of the biological treatment removes that breaks it down?
Activated sludge does a pretty good job. The beans not so good.
Yeah,
Septic tanks, none at all.
none at all, right?
So if you want to get any cocaine, you want to go to treatment plants that aren't activated sludge.
So, but the BNR process for instance, would do a pretty good breakdown.
That's a great engineering deal here.
Yeah. Your BNR process would break down. the
Yes.
post, Yeah.
Yeah, there's activated sludge part that.
Yeah.
Those types of people.
Great. So. Moving on to the next thing on the meeting, and Hans, thank you so much for coming. This is very helpful.
Super fun.
Well, I love the way we exchange ideas. Even if most of my ideas get shot down. I gotta fix
Keep slugging away, Barbara.
it.
You're gonna get a home run one day.
When it makes it through though, that makes it all worth it.
You have a great opportunity to influence this. The governor race is on. That's where that, you know, the regulatory decisions start,
Yeah,
can start in the legislature, but most of them start at the, you know, executive branch.
Who do you think's gonna win?
Barbara. Hands down.
You have a good relationship with her?
I think so.
Oh, this one,
Yeah.
so this part I didn't know.
I thought so, right? Have a pretty good relationship.
Oh, pretty good, yeah. All right. Mark.
Oh,
Next on the agenda.
all right, at the risk of beating a dead horse, you know, the aqua aerobics, SPR system and Parkson are the two big players that I'm aware of in batch reactor, types of, treatment plants. This aqua aerobics is the same ones that does the Nareda system in the United States. And Parkson does a lot of other, treatment devices also, filtration, sludge handling systems, etc. A batch reactor is simply a pot that you put your soup in, you cook it until it's ready, and then you drain the soup out. The treated soup out of it, and what remains is sludge. So in doing this, you can imagine at a sewage treatment plant, you've got your influent coming in all the time. And you can only cook your soup in periods. So a batch reactor, you put the influent flow into the batch reactor. You turn the air on, you turn mixers on, you turn the air off, you have the mixer going, things like that, depending on what you want to do with these, have the microorganisms that you're growing, how they treat that sewage that's come in. Then you need to turn off all of the mixing and aeration so that the biology that you have created settles down and leaves a clarified effluent on the surface. While it's off, you can't put in an SBR, you can't put the flow into the tank because it stirs it up. So you have another tank where you sequence to the other tank and you're doing what you had done in the first tank in the second tank while this is settling. You settle, you drain off the clarified effluent for polishing. And in the interim, this tank is doing the operations. Then you switch back and you just switch back and forth. So that's what the batch reactor system is. And it can be 2 tanks, 3 tanks, 4 tanks, depending on how you want to manage it. The Nareda system has this advantage of being able to take that influent flow while the settling is taking place. When a batch reactor system, a sequencing batch reactor system, can't take the flow during the settle process, the Nareda process touts that it can take the flow during the settle period. So you do not necessarily need to have sequencing reactors. Okay.
And how would they do that?
Pardon me?
How do they do that?
Well, as shown in some of these little videos they show us, what they do is they grow this little pea gravel that the microbes cling on to. And there's a zillion different types of microbes going on each one of these individual units. And apparently those settle so well that they don't get stirred up by the influent continuing to come in. So the influent flow of dirty water, we'll call it, displaces the clean water out the other side of the tank until the point where you stop because the water is becoming infringed upon by the incoming dirty water. So rather than going to a separate tank with that inflow while the settling takes place, you're able to take this inflow during the settling period because that settling happens so
Critical.
But you still have to stop the mixing.
yeah, you still stop the mixing and everything. But it's that point that you save 1 tank.
Interesting.
Because you can do everything in 1 tank. Now you're crazy if you did a design without more than 1 tank.
Right.
Because you always want to have backup, but you know. So that's the net result is that one function of being able to remove clarified treated effluent from the tank while raw influent or screened influent is going into the tank. That's the big difference. In an SBR system, Aqua Aerobics has a system where they have aeration bubblers in the bottom of their tank. They have a floating mixer and they have a floating decanter. And these devices are what Aqua Aerobic touts as the best way of doing batch reactors. A Parkson system, which is what is down at the town of Berlin, it has a different method. It has a jet aeration header in the bottom, which is pumping liquid and drawing in air at the same time for aeration and mixing. And the method to withdraw the decanter is a big arm that swivels and has a float on the top, and the water can just draw in off the surface as the water level draws down in the tank. I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but they're just two different ways of removing the clarified effluent during the idle period, during the quiescent period.
So which one you like better?
They both of them have. I'm kind of like the SVRs by Aqua Aerobics a little bit better.
Since I designed the one in Berlin.
I did the Parkson in Berlin, and I've done a lot of Aqua Aerobics around the country and Parkson. So then, in both cases, you want to filter the effluent, often to get the phosphorus removal accomplished to the high levels that are best for the environment. You add a little iron to the effluent, mix it with this beautiful clear water. You mix a little bit of iron into it in the form of ferric chloride. There's other chemicals you can use. And that will create particles of phosphorus that will be able to be filtered. And you're able to get a good removal of that nutrient from the effluent. I always try to recommend that extra step after the activated sludge step. So.
Does the iron cause any problems?
I beg your pardon?
Does the iron cause any problems?
No, it's not enlarging. I mean, you're not turning iron. This ferric chloride is a brown liquid in drops, and you get it. It's on the size of your treatment plant. And you just put a little bit in just to get the last bit of phosphorus bound up and filtered. So the phosphorus will precipitate and be able to be filtered by the last step before chlorination or disinfection. But I don't know if all of that make any sense.
Great explanation.
Oh, thanks.
You missed one.
You involved with this so much, you just kind of take things for granted. And my wife starts going blank,
Mark, how many shirts
She
you
was the
ruined with
Lawrence
ferric?
major.
Huh?
How many shirts did you ruin with ferric?
Oh, there you go, that's right. It's not a fun chemical to use. There's other chemicals that you can use, it's a little more expensive.
All this stuff will not come out of any clothes.
Oh, really?
And it'll burn you too. So,
Does InfoMark use any specific different kinds of technology that you guys have supported? Maybe it's a question for Mike, I don't know.
Mike's gonna help us with this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the Aqua Aerobics SBRs as well. I mean, I operated one for 8 years in Lancaster County here. Another client is looking at the same process. I've peripherally looked into it, not as far as to figure out what to do with the sludge, but yeah, I mean, it seems like a good process.
Oh, the Narita technology, Mike, is that what you're talking?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. One of our Downingtown client is looking to do an upgrade in their. That was one of the technologies recommended by their consultant. The other was an MBR. So I'm not super in favor of the MBR just because of the maintenance requirements and the energy consumption. A lot of reasons, but I mean they do produce great water as you see at Lewes. But as far,
Reach out to them. See what
Yeah.
they're thinking.
but like I said, SBRs, I mean, I think SBR is a fitting process for, what you're discussing. Especially with the activated sludge there, I'm sorry, escapes me right now, the granulated activated sludge option. But mostly what we run are just conventional, wastewater treatment plants, for the most part.
Thank you.
And Mark also put together this list. Because when we were putting together the questions for technology vendors. Yeah. One of the questions is, what else do we need besides the reader, it's nice and compact, but you know that's not everything. Yeah. That might be needed, and I think we all knew we need headworks. This is
One of the things I wanted to point out
Yeah.
for this list, you'll see that I do not have an influent flow equalization,
Right.
which is what you do have at the plant now, and wish you had bigger. But you don't need that with a batch reactor. You just, whatever arrives, you pump into the reactor until the reactor is full, and then you go to the next reactor. Or then the reader process I'm not familiar with. But I don't know if that needs flow equalization. You know if they have that at Alabama?
I think they said they built it into their capacity of the actual,
Size of the reactor.
yeah, because I think if I remember, I think they built it for a process of 2 million with a peak factor of like 6.
Okay,
So I think they oversized the tanks
Yeah.
themselves.
so more than likely their tanks fill up only this far instead of all the way up.
They just have a lot of headroom.
And where is this place you're talking?
That's Riviera. That's Alabama.
Okay.
Riviera Utilities, but fully Alabama.
Right, thank you.
I don't think of Riviera in Alabama.
Yeah,
Having been to both.
Yeah. All right,
You get a good tan.
Yeah.
Both places.
So I don't know if there's anything else. Sludge processing is pretty much the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways to handle sludge. Still need the outfall piping, which of course is already at the existing plant site. That big piece of it. You didn't go all the way out into the ocean. Disinfection facilities, you use UV or you can use chlorine and dechlorinate after you chlorinate. But I just show UV system. It's pretty good way to go after filtration. So
Marks the SBR pretty insensitive to grid.
yes, it is. At least as I found, it's not, as with all treatment plants. Once every 2 years, you take it down and get all the grit out of the bottom, no matter what you have.
Then the duration is not very forgiving.
No.
Which is that?
You see the extended duration process because of the fine bubbles it produces. Any grit that comes in just pops out like.
That's a good thing. And a grit removal facility ahead of any of these plants is also a good idea. I didn't mention it.
But I mean, it may not be needed because you don't have that problem.
Well, this is the beach, and so I imagine.
No, I mean, the problem is.
right.
The fact that your aeration system and everything can be placed above what's at the base, and you can empty the tank every once in a while. It's still grit is hard.
I mean, to get it out of,
Even with a grit removal system, you're gonna.
to get it out on SBR, it's a heck of a lot easier to get it out of that thing.
Yeah. I would say so.
So, but that's a good point. It's something I didn't mention on headworks. The grit removal system is usually advantageous for system this size.
Well, I was thinking that the headworks that we would need for an SBR or Aqua Narita would not be as complex as the one we have because of the MBR process.
That would be
Not
right.
as,
I totally agree with that.
You're doing 5 mil and then it steps down to the 2 mil. So we. Yeah, with the histogram.
So you take a lot out of the front end.
yeah,
But the old design was flawed because the way that it was originally designed is you had your 5 mil, got your first crack at it. It would go to the 2 mil. Whatever got caught the 2 mil got pumped back up to the 5 mil via a grinder pump.
I've never seen that.
What's the theory behind that?
yeah, right.
That's how it was built. Am I correct with that
To
statement?
the 5 mil,
Yeah.
it goes through the 5 mil and pissed grid into the EQ tank, from the EQ tank to the 2 mil. 2 mil gets pumped back up to the discharge side of the 5 mil and then goes through a live pack.
That's how it was. And
That's how
Mike
it was.
Mike was here from the beginning, and I think Mike can attest the way that it was done before is that it actually went through a grinder pump, got pumped back up to, at the time, was the old live pactor, which is offline. That's going to be replaced with a compactor. So you essentially ground down just enough to get through the 2 mil, which would go through the process and get on the memory.
That was one of the main practical findings in the brains.
Yes, you made. your
Mike, am I
own-
right with that?
You made your own coding.
Yeah, I mean, you're grinding up the 2 mil and pumping it back up to the 5 mil, the discharge side of the 5 mil. So it wasn't going through the 5 mil, but you kept grinding the screening slurry. So eventually it got so small that it would get through the 2 mil. So it was flawed for sure.
Would we need an FMNDQ tank for the Narita process and the SBR or?
I would suggest, I don't know the answer for sure.
Yeah.
I would think it would be best to be able to feed the filter at a very specific
Steady rate.
steady rate. And I'm thinking of a specific kind of disc filter that is made. It's, I put in a few different plants and they've worked very, very nicely.
Anyone else have comments about the list, questions, comments? About Mark's list, not the list of questions that we have, that'll come up next. Oh, but before next is the scheduling the trip to Berlin.
Yes.
Yes.
I was able to they finally got back to me. And the head operator, Megan, said that she, I didn't want to be a pain, but could you put up with us for a visit? And she said, not at all a problem. She recommended 2 different times. And I can only go one of those 2 times. She said, Thursday this week at 10:30 or Thursday, the 21st. at 10:30
What day can you make it?
this week. I have company coming on first.
Do you have a barbecue or how can we do
My company is here. But I'm sure if we wanted to go later in the season, she would, would think further out. I'm sure she was trying to see if there was something as soon as possible. So I kind of, if we were to do it quickly, I mean, of those 2 dates,
Yeah.
I'd prefer to try and do it the 14th.
Well, then the question becomes that Narita Technology webinar is that day. at
Oh, it is.
11:30. So, if we get our own presentation on Narita, then we don't need that.
Right.
Yeah,
You have center stage.
yeah, right, which is what I prefer. And
See you later.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Thank you, nice meeting you.
Thanks for coming. So what do people think? Who's available on the 14th?
Like in 2 days?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, like in 2 days.
yeah.
I'm in Chicago. So.
Did you make it on?
I can't make either one of those
No.
days.
Okay.
I can't make either one of those dates either.
Who's the other day?
It's the 21st. It's next Thursday.
Let's push off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe if people gave some dates of their availability,
Okay.
and we shuffle them together and see which line up. We Get as many people as possible.
Maybe.
See if they're okay with it.
Start the week of the 25th and provide availability. That gets us, the 25th would be 2 weeks out, basically 2 weeks from yesterday. So that at least gives people to look out beyond.
Yeah,
Is Thursday their preferred day? I know
that's
they
what it
both-
sounds like.
So, okay.
You
So it'd be
know,
like the 28th then.
Yeah, but we couldn't.
Right.
You have a,
What do I have that day, Bob? For
You have.
you have a
Oh,
work,
that's right.
and I have to present it.
Let me send out a poll.
Yeah, we can do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I'll do
Right.
that,
Yeah.
and then it's gonna be in October.
And we have an outage in the morning of the.
We're on it.
the only reason I have been wanting to show this to you is, certainly some of these devices are there. The Parkson system is there, the disk filter is there. I'm interested. There's a septage receiving station there that's interested in the stabilization. But this was a 6-acre site with an active sewage treatment plant all over it, where we came in and built a brand new treatment plant within the same fence line. And that's really what I wanted to show you, that it isn't impossible to do that.
Right.
You
I
know,
don't think.
and, you know, all of these ancillary devices and everything are good to see and all that, but
Yeah.
that was the main gist of the impetus behind my suggestion. This is to show you that it's not possible to build here and then take down here and build here, and take down, and like that. Now, they take all of their effluent and pump it to spray irrigation. They have a permit to discharge into the little stream right adjacent to the plant, but they never use it. They pump all of their effluent to the lagoon for holding already treated and then irrigated into pine forests.
Wow, even in the winter, they can.
Yes, they can hold it.
Probably.
They can hold it through the winter time. And of course, in woods, it's a little bit more convenient in the real cold weather.
Yeah.
And of course, thank God, global warming, it allows you to spray all the time.
We got that going for.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
That's the first time I've heard that. Yeah, concept and
Hans, you're a stock guy. If you were to take a flyer on some technology or wastewater treatment, what technology would you guys?
That's a bad question for me, because, you know, like I'm with Mark, tried and true, what he goes back to the designs which worked for him, and I have I think we all got, you probably designed more plans, I probably designed like 6 or 7, 8 things. But it's,
I mean,
I'm an extended aeration guy. So
Yeah,
that's-
oxidation ditches are wonderful plants.
only did one in the play, but that was,
Yeah, they work out okay.
but there's the only one I put a centrifuge in, I regret that.
I operated a centrifuge. I was an operator.
You know, we make mistakes, but we sort of stick with so we would be
Proven.
bad investors in the future. Hi, Mark.
Oh, my.
Okay.
We won't make our mistakes again.
There you
Well,
go.
that's right.
Or at least we won't admit to it.
We bring up the list of questions then. I'm hoping you all actually looked at them
Mhm.
between the last meeting and this one. And the red is what we talked about at the last meeting with a little bit of tweaking here and there from me. And you can see at number 15, I worked for a British firm for too long. And the spelling slips in now and then.
It's for the additional ones.
Somehow less offensive that way.
Slip in on the 17. Yeah, labor requirements.
Yeah.
Right spelling.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking where I could stick the other OU in.
Yeah, right.
In 24, the answer would be no, right?
Right, yeah, I did send those questions to Hans and, but you have, I think, a handout that answers those. Didn't know whether he'd be able to make the meeting, so he printed them, that was very helpful. But you know what bothers me as an environmental scientist is the permit limits. That there's not. And I'm assuming if we discharge to the ocean, the permit limits will be even less stringent.
No, the ocean limits are the ones I send you in the attachment for South Coast. What you're looking at in the handout are the ones for Wolf Neck, right?
Okay. So, you know, right now we've got a system that produces very nice effluent. And we're cleaning up the environment considerably. If we go with spray irrigation, or if we go with ocean outfall, you don't have to treat it.
South Coastal effluent is almost identical.
Is it?
It's very similar.
You don't have the phosphorus limits or anything like that, right?
No, but just the process we use, it runs in. It's energy, it's more energy efficient to run your extended duration process in the BNR mode. Because you recover some of the oxygen. So that's what we do all the time. And that's why, you know, we have nitrogen numbers very similar to yours. By default, how we operate well.
Yeah.
Not because our permit says so, it's just because we do. Our phosphorus numbers are higher because we don't use flocculation to take it out because it makes no sense. The nitrogen numbers are very common.
All of those lagoons that you have, is that why you're
No, I'm talking about the South Coast.
South Coast, okay,
I'm not,
not the.
what you see at Wolf Neck is early 90s technology, well applied by our friend Presley. That's what that is. It was never, that is a 30-year-old facility which was never upgraded. It's exactly like it was.
So when you put a DNR process in there, are you still gonna have all those lagoons? Will you need
We
them?
will only have the effluent lagoon. Because we'll use the effluent lagoon for discharge equalization. That is like. Whether you have spray or ocean outfall, and in order to control your costs, to have a consistent annual average outfall. For example, let's say it's a 5 million gallon plant. You size it for 5 million gallons, you turn the pumps on, and when you're running out of water, you turn them off. There's no lead lag, there's no start. It runs all the time. So there's an engineering beauty in that. Now, you know, you wouldn't have that at a discharge like you have. You don't have that luxury because you can't equalize your discharge. And you have your hydraulic residency time in the plant is what, 24 hours? 36 hours max. I got you. That's the timeline you have, then it has to go somewhere. So, like in our case, we have days and weeks on it, and we're just sticking in.
Yeah, right. A lot of storage. Okay,
How many hours did you say, please?
For our plant,
Yeah,
about a day.
thank you.
That's why they need to make it up
in the winter.
with Sussex County input during parts of the year.
It works to our benefit,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
seasonality works to our benefit, and works to your financial benefit, I pay the bill, so I know it's not.
Also helps to keep our plant stabilized.
Yeah,
And I may have mentioned that before, like, Lewes Board of Public Works was the first wastewater partner we had in 2016.
okay, if no one has anything to add to those questions, then I will send them off to Aqua Aerobic.
Now, do you want me to reach out to Wyandotte County or Riviera Utilities?
Yes,
And what are the biggest questions you want answered? So I wrote down sludge handling process,
Yeah.
the technology, the size, disposal, the byproduct, number of operators, employees, training for the technology. Break that down into like chemists, biologists, operators, size of the parcel, is it in the floodplain, total acreage, total cost and lead time, energy use, O&M costs, odor control, time for install, any subsidy that they received for the technology that they're utilizing. And then the last one was why, Narita, are you happy? Cons of the technology and permitting.
and surprises during construction, early operation. Oh, and what about the issue of, do you grow your own, what happens during the period when the sludge is growing to be that granular size? What do they
That
do?
startup period.
Yeah, the startup period,
That's a good question.
yeah. You can either buy the granules already from another facility, or you can grow your own. And they show on
While they're
charts.
growing, your effluent is probably degraded a little.
Yes, right. So what do they do about that?
But wouldn't you just need seed, just like you need seed sludge for these granules?
Well, if you can purchase the granules
That's what I'm
themselves that have already been grown somewhere, yes, I imagine you take off pretty quickly. But another possibility, I mean, in what we have seen, they've talked about growing. That's
Yes.
been their primary focus, and that it's not. They don't mention buying it or getting it from somewhere.
I actually thought they were selling them to you.
That probably would make sense that they would.
Yeah.
That I haven't seen any of that in the
Well, add
literature
that to
that
the
we've
question.
received so far.
Yeah, right.
Anyway,
And
Is it like media?
no, it's not. It's a biological package that creates a little seed, but it's pure organic matter, is my understanding.
Because I think
It's
when
like
we
a pod
started,
you throw into the tank.
Well,
no, it's
I mean,
no, they actually grow it by it.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead, please, I'm
Well,
sorry.
I think they have in their technique of turning the air off and on and the mixers off and on, they actually create these little seeds and that seed is the point which looser biology fits to it. And it just settles much more rapidly than just activated sludge settles. So I believe that's going out and buying it from somewhere else, so you have immediate startup because the seed is already grown and you're already getting that settle period. If you don't have that quick settling, you can't put like I described, you can't continue to put the water because it'll wash those seeds out or the less treated water. So they may start them up as batch reactors rather than so that you put water in, you grow this while you're growing the seed. But when you settle, you don't put more water in, you go to another reactor, like a regular batch reactor until they've grown the seed. I don't know. It's the kind of question that would be worthwhile asking how they get it started.
I remember when we started the bio air unit, we got media from your pump station out at the Exxon, I think, to get it started.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Mike, did you have any thoughts you wanted to share?
I'm sorry, I zoned out. I was looking at another email. What was the question?
Do you have any thoughts on what we should ask the other Narita sites? Existing operating sites, things that might help you with your Downingtown friends, for instance.
Let me think about that and I can shoot an email if I think of anything additional.
Okay. Okay, that'd be great. Donna, do you have comments? Questions?
I don't, other than I was getting ready to say that I have to run, so, okay.
All right, well, the timing's good.
I'll look for the email.
Okay,
Okay, bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Schedule the next meeting. Should we schedule it now or should we schedule based on a poll?
You can do either.
Are you thinking
Do
that
you-
you want to meet before the tour?
Yeah.
I'm
That's
sorry.
that's exactly what I was gonna.
Definitely, because it looks like the tour is gonna get pushed off to October, so maybe we can schedule it. There's going to be a mitigation committee meeting. On
When is
the
that?
27th
Oh, really?
at 1:30, so maybe we could schedule. Did you hear about?
27?
Nope.
Same day as the board meeting?
No, the board meetings, oh, the 26th, I'm sorry.
26.
Yeah.
27th is the
At
board,
1:30.
right?
According to press, I think that was,
Okay. I emailed them. I didn't hear back.
oh,
So.
so it may or may not happen.
Correct.
Okay, there's a possible
There
mitigation.
may be a scheduling conflict.
Okay,
Do we have one?
Oh, we got a week on most waterfront preserve.
Yeah, that's a progress. Yeah.
so maybe the 25th.
Maybe. As soon as I find out, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay.
25th.
Your meeting on the 27th is at 4, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So press was thinking 1:30 for the mitigation committee.
Okay. I'll follow back up with.
Okay,
On the 26th?
on the 26th. Yeah. Now, what did you say, Austin, about the 25th? That doesn't work for you?
I have,
It's full.
yeah. That's the day I come back, so it's.
Talk to his boss every few
Ah,
days.
oh, okay.
My goal is not to look at my email
I-
when I'm going next.
Now, do you want to wait until you hear back from Narita? Because I know you're gonna ask about, because what do you plan to have on this next agenda?
It would be nice if we had Rita at the next meeting.
And you expect them to be on Zoom? Is that what you expect, or are you
Well, you know,
inviting them in?
I'm inviting them in, whether they'll be able to make it, you know, in the time period we're talking about, I don't know. This guy, Joe Tardio, he's a UD graduate, which is kind of interesting, so I think he might enjoy a trip back to the area,
Okay.
but. So, yeah, why don't I
You
then,
reach out to them and then get back with me, and then I'll send out a poll for that as well.
okay,
And then we'll go from there.
Okay.
right.
All right.
So any questions from the public?
Jeff, you're the public today.
Yeah.
You're representing the public.
Yeah.
Well done.
or our other public.
I'm not
Esteemed,
Yes.
esteemed guest, huh?
Okay, then I think we can adjourn this meeting. Thank you.